Welcome to This Explainer. Look, we're diving straight into the actual historical texts left behind by European empires to tackle a massive question. What really drove them across the Atlantic between 1491 and 1607? We aren't just memorizing dates here. We are literally decoding the exact foundational motivations that shifted the entire globe. So, to really grasp this massive rush to explore the Americas, we need to look directly at the raw original documents. I mean, by reading the actual words written by the explorers, the navigators, and the strategists of the time, we can uncover the true engines behind this totally unprecedented era of global expansion. It's like a giant puzzle, and we have the original pieces. Here's our roadmap for today's investigation. 1. Why cross the ocean? 2. The search for wealth. 3. Empires in competition. 4. Spreading Christianity. 5. Decoding the historical evidence. And 6. Connecting the historical dots. Let's get into it.
Section 1. Why cross the ocean? The Great European Shift.
When historians look at the vast developments of this era, they always identify three primary, deeply intertwined motives for European exploration and conquest. First up, a search for new sources of wealth. Second, economic and military competition between nations. And third, a desire to spread Christianity. You really can't separate these. They fed directly into each other. A nation absolutely needed wealth to fund its military. It needed that military might to outpace its rivals. And it used religious mandates to basically justify the whole shebang. Every primary document we explore today ties perfectly back to at least one of these three pillars.
To prove this, we're calling three key historical witnesses to the stand. We're going to examine Christopher Columbus right after his very first voyage in 1493. Then, we'll look at Richard Hockley's deeply persuasive arguments to the English crown in 1584. And finally, we'll check out Samuel de Champlain's rationale for French expansion starting in 1604.
Section 2. The search for wealth. Finding new sources of wealth.
It's no secret that European nations were primarily looking to enrich their empires. But to really understand this, we have to grasp the harsh economic reality of 15th and 16th century Europe. Many of these nations were recovering from incredibly costly wars, and their local resources, they were heavily strained. So this expansion wasn't just some casual voyage of discovery. It was a desperately needed high-stakes venture to find new, entirely untapped resources to send back home. Just look at Columbus's 1493 letter to Louis de Saint-Angel. He immediately focuses on resource potential. Published literally right after he returned to Spain, he isn't just describing beautiful scenery, He's pitching an investment. He actively reports on the spices, the massive fertile lands perfect for planting, and of course the high potential for gold. He explicitly notes excellent harbors and rivers, signaling directly to his financial backers that there is immense extractable value just waiting to be claimed. This search for new sources of wealth was the absolutely crucial engine that funded further exploration. By extracting raw materials from the Americas, European nations could fuel their power structures back home, creating this massive cycle of imperial expansion that, honestly, completely transformed the global economy.
Section 3. Empires in Competition. Navigating Military Rivalry.
Now, this wasn't just about getting rich in a vacuum. It was a fierce, global chess match. Nations like Spain, Portugal, England, and France were locked in intense economic and military competition. Being the first to claim a territory meant preventing a rival nation from gaining the upper hand. Think about it. If Spain found a new trade route, England felt the immediate, crushing pressure to secure their own, or risk falling permanently behind militarily and economically on the European stage. If we look at Samuel de Champlain's letters to the French Queen Regent, written between 1604 and 1618, we get a crystal-clear taste of this exact strategic mindset. France felt seriously threatened by the massive expansion of the Spanish and the growing naval power of the English. So Champlain frames his journey not as a mere exploration, but as an absolutely vital move for France. He basically argues for the strategic necessity of securing the fur trade and establishing permanent settlements so that France wouldn't get completely boxed out of the New World's economic opportunities by its bitter rivals. Champlain's letters perfectly encapsulate this second historical motive: military competition. Claiming land wasn't just about the territory itself, it was a preemptive strike to block rival nations. It was a direct exertion of national power designed to build an empire's diplomatic and military strength from the ground up.
Section 4. Spreading Christianity, a religious mandate.
Right alongside the quest for gold and military glory, European powers felt an incredibly strong mandate to bring their religion to the territories they encountered. During this era, you have to remember, religion and state power were practically indistinguishable. A monarch's right to rule was deeply tied to divine authority. What that meant was the expansion of their empire was simultaneously viewed as the expansion of their faith.
And we see this everywhere, in almost all of our primary sources, whether we're looking at the Spanish perspectives with Columbus, the French with Champlain, or the English with Hakluyt. Religious expansion is consistently woven right into their political and economic goals. It's a fascinating reality that these bitter, warring rivals all shared this exact same overarching theme. They consistently used the spread of the Christian faith as a core justification for their presence and their expansion.
Section 5. Decoding the evidence. Hakluyt's 23 reasons.
23. That is the massive number of broad reasons Richard Hakluyt laid out in his 1584 work, A Discourse Concerning Western Planting. He wrote this specifically to convince the English monarch, Queen Elizabeth I, to establish colonies in the Americas. I mean, he practically threw the kitchen sink at the Queen, bringing up every possible political, economic, and religious argument to see exactly what would finally convince her to fund the expedition.
If we take just the titles of his first 10 chapters, we can map his 16th century words directly to our 3 historical causes. For example, he argues that the Americas would provide new markets for English wool. Well, that's the absolute essence of the search for wealth. He argues that English colonies would act as a strategic counter to Spanish Catholicism that seamlessly blends military competition with the desire to spread their specific Protestant faith. He even points out how it would improve the English Navy. All 3 pillars of exploration are sitting right there, clear as day in his arguments.
Section 6. Connecting the dots. Looking at the big picture.
As the historical framework points out, these early motivations, wealth, competition, and religion, didn't just cause ships to sail. They set the stage for incredibly complex interactions. The drive for resources led to massive new economic systems. The competition sparked intense military conflicts and constantly shifting diplomatic alliances. These specific letters, written way back in the 15th and 16th centuries, resulted in centuries of global consequences that ultimately shaped the entire development of the Americas.
By comparing the raw letters of explorers with our academic framework, we see exactly how primary sources yield the core facts of history. When we read Columbus, Champlain, or Hakluyt, we aren't asked to endorse their ideas or their actions. Instead, we read them to analyze the documents for the historical information they contain. We extract the historical takeaways, wealth, competition, and faith, to strictly and objectively understand the mechanics and the major drivers of the past.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought to investigate further. We've seen exactly what motivated these European empires straight from their own pens. When we understand that they were entirely driven by resource extraction, international rivalry, and religious expansion, how does that historical context change the way we read the timeline they created? If these 3 motives laid the foundation for global expansion centuries ago, how do we see the echoes of wealth, competition, and faith shaping international relations today? Keep asking questions, keep looking at the evidence, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.